This peril belongs to all Middle-earth. They must decide now how to end it. The time of the elves is over. My people are leaving these shores. Who will you look to when we've gone? The dwarves? They hide in their mountains seeking riches. They care nothing for the troubles of others.
It is in men that we must place our hope.
Men. Men are weak. The race of men is failing. The blood of Numenor is all but spent. Its pride and dignity forgotten. There's no strength left in the world of men.
Masculinity is dying, especially traditional masculinity. In fact, traditional everything is dying. Welcome to the postmodern West, where you can be anything, believe anything, and you are always right. You are the center of the universe. And the only reason you are miserable is because of systemic oppression, because of crusty old white guys, because of them over there, men. So down with the oppressors, down with the patriarchy, down with masculinity. It's funny, just replace the word men, or white men, with Jews, and you have the essential propaganda of the Holocaust. Women good, men bad, diverse people good, white men evil.
So if the woman is the prize, what would that make the man?
The wallet.
Yeah.
Doesn't that place the man at a lower
If
value?
there is one thing that
Yes, I went a little far there. It's a little different from the Holocaust, but in some ways it's reflective. Masculinity is in for a tough time and has been for a while. Instead of killing men outright, today's tactic is to kill the mythos around manhood and to make men ashamed of their own masculinity. The macho, emotionally suppressed, womanizing tough guy is the bane of society and the butt of every joke in media. And perhaps this flawed stereotype should die. So at the least, we can stop boxing masculinity into this tiny shell. It's time masculinity had a facelift. And it's not the way you think. I don't mean making boys softer and more passive and more feminine is the solution. That is just swinging to the other side of the spectrum from the macho man. To revive masculinity, we can't do away with it altogether. We must seek to understand it, to understand the childish manifestations of it and how to cultivate its higher form. Today's video is about quote-unquote toxic masculinity versus mature masculinity, and this is setting the stage to talk about masculine revival. Before we go any further, I can already hear people yelling from the back, so let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, some women are masculine and men feminine. That's fine. We all have a unique temperament and a blend of masculine and feminine, and I'm not trying to box anyone in. But can we not agree that masculinity is unique from femininity and that we should perhaps try to understand its nature and highest expression? Can we also agree that the majority of men are masculine and women more feminine? As such, I'm speaking to the general masculine man in this video, as perhaps more media should do, rather than focusing on a very loud minority. So when I say man or woman in this video, I am referring to the masculine or feminine variety. And honestly, I think having popular narratives that push effeminacy onto males is very destructive. We do this because we don't understand masculinity. We are scared of masculinity, and we fail to nurture its higher expression. So instead, we try to smother it. We try to destroy it. There are two types of revolution. One is a revolution of deconstruction. This type focuses on what is wrong, on what should be destroyed. It whips up the populace into a rage in order to topple a great nation or idea, and it provides little to take its place. These revolutions are usually orchestrated by a shadow hand that gains power and wealth through the fall. We see this in the French Revolution power grab, where the wealthy merchants emerged on top and the rest of the people had to endure a bloody reign of terror. This revolution was very different from the American Revolution. This other type of revolution is one of construction toward an ideal, where people get together and outline a plan for a new world or idea, like the founding fathers of America. Their vision did not cast out the past, but rather learned from it. They incorporated values and ideas that have been tested and passed down through millennia. This type of revolution creates an army that fights for an ideal and a dream, rather than a mob that fights against something out of resentment. Yes, there is crossover here, but you get the gist. Are you fighting to destroy or fighting to create? This is an important question. In terms of masculinity, we need a revolution that is thoughtful and constructive, not a mob of resentment and ignorance that throws out the baby with the bathwater. People today rail against the patriarchy and against toxic masculinity as some great evils that must be deconstructed. Most of these people are just echoing what is fashionable to say, and man hate is very in fashion right now, especially on the left. Let's look at Barbie, for example. That movie makes out men to be incompetent, bumbling fools who are useless, or else it depicts them as some heartless, immature proponents of the patriarchy. Across all new movies, a masculine man is no longer some venerated ideal, but a shameful thing. Society, consciously or unconsciously, is trying to make women more masculine and men more feminine. And this is creating enormous issues within each individual relationship and in all of culture as a whole.
Seen my share.
You have not seen what I have seen.
I have seen my share.
You have not. You have not seen what I've seen. You have not.
Look at the message from all these strong female characters today. The tough girl that can topple every man without a challenge and is perfect the way she is. Look at the boss bitch influencers that preach independence and superiority and treat men as lesser than tools. What dystopia are we in? These women are literally embodying the very qualities we deem toxic in males. They are arrogant, emotionally suppressed, tough girls who look down on maternal instincts, and their only flaw is not believing in themselves enough. Ooh, what a strong female lead. Look at that arrogant gaze. Oh, 4 men into prison without a struggle? Okay.
If you knew exactly where she was going.
A bullshit, a bullshit, a bullshit.
Everything masculine is toxic, unless it's a woman doing it. This is the message that the media constantly shoves down our throats. Instead of highlighting and cultivating mature masculinity and femininity and healing the wounds between the two, we see this childish depiction of both. We seem to be part of a divisive death cult, one set on the masculinization of women and destruction of masculine men. To be a masculine man is now evil in the mainstream. This stoic, assertive, confident, and focused man has been cast aside in favor of the new man. They portray as hypervocal, childish, insecure, effeminate, incapable, soft, foolhardy, and some mixture of bi-curious. They took James Bond, historically a man's man, and made him pouty and sad. They took Thor, a god of the Norse, and made him a stupid clown with muscles. They took Luke Skywalker, the hero of a whole generation, and made him a washed-up, saddled man. Particularly in that last case, the writers had an opportunity to make a beloved mentor figure, kind of like the Obi-Wan was to Luke Skywalker. But no, instead they needed to demean him. They needed to tear down masculinity and make the elder look weak. In all our progressive enlightenment, we have thrown out manliness and the masculine ideal altogether. We're not given positive male heroes that are badass and inspiring anymore. The ones we used to look up to are being torn down by some means. All male characters are carefully softened, broken down in some demeaning way, or replaced with a more diverse person. There is an orchestrated attack on men across all media and pop culture. Just look at any new show, commercial, Marvel, or Disney movie and point to one inspiring male hero. Hollywood hates confident and embodied men. and pushes a message that a traditional man is wrong. This modern narrative has left most people confused about the whole subject, although I don't think we've ever really understood masculinity and femininity in its fullness. Hence, why there has been such tension and oppression and disrespect between the sexes instead of synergy. Some would argue, great. Tear down the traditional man and especially the white man of privilege. Let women have their heyday. And I would agree, to some extent, if it simply was an elevating of a historically oppressed group. Go for it. But there is something more insidious here. It's not just the raising up of one side, it is the cutting down of another. And this widespread subversion, attack, and misunderstanding of masculinity is doing far more harm than good. Half the world is masculine, and half the world is male. So why do we hate it? Why is man-hate so common today? Why are boys smothered in effeminacy? And why are masculine traits only praised in women? Why do we tear down the masculine man? There is a shadow side of masculinity that many are hyperfixated on. They see that men have held power for a long time and have not done well with it in some cases, perhaps many. Others just have a jaded view of men for one reason or another, probably because it's popular. We don't rely on masculine men like we used to. Men used to build the walls, protect the kingdom, do the dangerous jobs, and hunt and provide. They were valued for their strength rather than condemned for it. They were respected, and the heroic, virtuous man was once admired. Now, it is popular to tear down these heroes and disrespect men, and fuck. Y'all, we're killing them. Or rather, men are killing themselves, and some people applaud that.
Mortality from drug overdose, suicide, and alcohol-related illnesses are almost 3 times higher among men than women.
Data showing suicide rates have risen for Black and Hispanic men between 2000 and 2020.
Many refer to masculinity as toxic or bad, and I'm here to argue that masculinity is beautiful and the most needed thing on earth right now. Much of the quote-unquote toxic masculinity people claim would more accurately be defined as weak masculinity. It is weak men that are spiteful, insecure, emotionally explosive, and self-centered. They are cunning instead of wise, possessive instead of loving, and tend to manipulate their way to power instead of earn it. Mature masculine men, however, are strong, self-disciplined, nurturing, and community-centered. We see weak masculinity everywhere. We see it in the gym bro who is always trying to prove himself, in the video game addicts and entitled couch potatoes, in the Andrew Tates of the world that are hyper-arrogant, closed-hearted, and materialistic. We see it in the politicians who crave power and control, in the abusive father who is neglectful and petty, in the unavailable husband who gaslights his woman and cannot handle or understand her truth and feelings. We see this weak, psychological infancy in the tyrant who goes to war for his own selfish gain. I get how people extrapolate these bad examples and paint all masculinity as evil or toxic. But we must understand, these are boys in men's bodies, which is the norm today. They are the result of uncultivated masculinity, but we cannot demonize a whole group because of a bad few. Isn't that how war and genocide occur? Most of these infantile men are simply the products of a consumerist culture that promotes lust, greed, comfort, and vices as virtues. They are a product of a world without father figures and elders, and one that lacks a culture that supports a boy's journey into manhood. These are men who lack community and responsibility within a tribe. These are men led astray from themselves and what it means to be a man. We have very few examples in the mainstream narrative of the integral father, warrior, and king who leads with love and wisdom. Although he still exists in almost every community out there, hell, he's probably your neighbor. He is simply removed from the mainstream conversation and pop culture altogether. In order to raise up oppressed women and more diverse people, apparently we need to tear down masculine men. We need to tear down fathers and brothers and sons who are for the most part good human beings. To me, that sounds childish and vengeful and unwise. But unfortunately, it's working. We see more and more targeted attacks on men and manliness, and an increasing number of lost and confused men. Men are more alone, depressed, addicted, and undervalued than ever. What is the path forward for them? Masculinity is dying while the world applauds. And like all great deceptions, people clap while the devil smiles. Hey, thanks for watching Wisdom Warriors. I'm Christian, and I had to break this video into 2 parts. Make sure to subscribe for the next one on how do we revive masculinity. What does mature masculinity versus weak masculinity look like? And what can we do as individuals and as a culture to ensure this revival? Also, so much of the solution to this problem is held within my book, The Psychology of Slaying Dragons. I'm so excited to launch this book in 1 month. Below, there's a link where you can sign up to get notified about the launch and get my best essays along the way. Would love to have you on the launch team, and I'll see you at the next video on reviving masculinity. Peace.
Let us together rebuild this world, that we may share in the days of